Everybody ready? Welcome to the September 29, 2020 Board of Commissioners special meeting. Please silence cell phones, pagers, and other electronic communication devices. Agendas are located at the back of the chambers. First, we'll do a moment of silent reflection and pledge of allegiance by Gary Drews, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
First, we'll have a review and approval of the agenda, please.
So move.
By Drews,
Second.
second by DeSanto. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item number 5, Miss Cindy, items from the auditor.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Moeller, Pennington County Auditor. I prepared what I hope is the final memo for the 2021 budget. And the total increase with 1% and roll-ups ended up being considerably less really than what we had anticipated. And reaching out to the departments that did not have a 1% increase. Some of them have restructured some of their stuff. Some of them aren't going to hire or replace someone next year. And what else was there? Well, just with attrition and those types of things, people coming in at a lesser grade, they were able to reduce what they needed to request to make up that 1% on the increase in the wage scale. Does anybody have any questions in regards to that?
Any questions, or did people read the options? We're looking for option 1, 2, or 3 today, Miss Cindy, if I'm correct?
That is correct, but before we actually do that, we do need a motion to, if the board chooses to go with the budget as presented with all of the changes, I do need a motion because all of those changes have to be listed in the minutes.
I'd make that motion, Madam Chair.
Motion by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroy. And do we have to read those changes, Miss?
They will be in the minutes as they're listed on
Okay, thank you. Is
budget
there any
viewers.
questions?
So, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
so when Cindy said that, it didn't amount to as much as what we was originally talking about it, I think it's about $200,000 less or somewhere in that area from what we talked about a week ago, less than what we had anticipated. So, looks good to me. I think it's a good proposal, good budget.
Thank you, Commissioner Drews. Any other comments? Not, we do have a motion on the changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now we look at the options, Miss Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, and when you looked at the options, and we had visited about this, what option were you thinking at this point?
I listed option 1 using which was the increase of the $2.70 per 100,000 because that was the estimate that I had come up with during provisional. And so that is the first option. I don't know if that's exactly the way the board wants to go. The second option would be to not use any of the stored CPI, which increases the levy by $1.30 per 100,000. And then the third option is to use the $285,000 that was specified in the provisional budget, and that would increase the levy by $4.20 per 100,000.
Okay. Do we have discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
I'd make a motion that we accept option 1.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ross Connect. And discussion, please.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Gary, what was your thought process on going with option 1 as opposed to option 2?
Well, I like the idea of leaving the $425,000 in stored CPI. Also, it gets us pretty close to that, to the 20% as far as reserves is concerned. All the options leave us pretty close to that. But
Right.
I think it's accomplishing what we want it to do, or what I was looking at it to do. So I like that, leaving that much in the CPI, the stored CPI, I think is just a good move on our part.
Option two, I was looking at option two, and we could leave the 565,000 in the stored CPI. No matter what, whether we use the CPI or we raise the levy, we're taking money out of the taxpayers' pockets anyway. So why not leave it all in the stored CPI?
Cindy, do you have an answer? Why you would leave it all in the stored, or the stored CPI?
That is totally up to the discretion of the board. I know that the goal was to try to get to the 20% for reserves, and I think, as Gary said, any of those options are very close to what you were looking at for a goal.
And I'm with Gary on the 19.71%, because our goal was 20%. That doesn't use all our stored CPI. That still leaves at $2.70 per 100,000. That's kind of where our goal was for this year. And also, if we can get it up by that 20%, hopefully if anything comes up with a 10% cut or anything else again, that we're ahead of the game, is why I like that percentage for reserves up as well, instead of having to keep cutting. So I'm with Gary on option one.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick.
I don't think there's any one of those three options is totally wrong.
Right.
And I think, number one, when I looked at this over the weekend, I just thought that was overall most fair to both sides, a compromise, a little less harsh than three, but a little more tougher than two. So over this weekend, I kind of felt that number one was a good choice.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Quite frankly, I think option one, I was leaning more towards two also, but my priorities through these budgets is, and what we do is the smaller increases, all the stuff we've done with the Gallagher studies for the employees and stuff, I think we do small ones. Those are easier to deal with. I'd hate to see 2 years, 3 years down the road, all of a sudden we start dipping in and we have to take 3-4% stored CPI, something along those lines. I'd rather do it gradually, and I think that's the best way to go. So, I understand where Mark's going, but we should leave the CPI, but I think we do it smaller ones. Then we won't have to do that later on. We've done pretty good in the last, was it 20 years? As far as our budget goes, but I think we're starting a new beginning next year for the Gallagher with the employees and so forth, and I think we're getting to that goal of the 20%, and I think that's achievable. And next year, the board may decide we want more in there than 20%. We've had discussions with a little bit higher. We'd be more comfortable after the year that we've seen happen today. So I'm comfortable with the gradual CPI. I think it's right in the middle of what our options are.
Okay. I just wanted to know what his thought was on that.
Mr. DeSanto, you have any other discussion?
No.
Okay. We do have a motion by Drew, second by Roskinick. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Next, thank you, Miss Cindy. I also,
Sure.
Commissioner Drew.
I just want to commend Cindy for her work that she put in on this entire budget. I know it's been up and down, and we really didn't know what we had when we started the budget process because of the COVID. So it's been a lot of extra work on your part, but appreciate all the effort you put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. The department heads have really helped in that as well.
I too agree with Gary on what Cindy's done, but also the department heads and the cuts and the things that they've had to go through with trying to figure out COVID and still trying to figure out COVID reimbursements. So was a team effort, but Cindy, you led the charge for us and a lot of us in the different departments as well to get where we are today. So thank you for what you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you all.
That's right.
Appreciate it.
All right, next we are going to tax increment financing update. Gary, I'm gonna let you go ahead and, you kind of wanted to bring this forward on visiting, because we do have a bunch of TIFs coming forward, and maybe some ideas that you might have as well.
Okay, thank you. We haven't had any actual formal requests at this point in time, but we've had several informal inquiries as to kind of testing our level of interest and where we want to be. Most of this involves Box Elder and that area surrounding Box Elder. And so I think just doing a little bit of a wind test here, it looks like we have at least probably 4 different developers that are moving forward on some plans, and I think each one of them are potentially looking at asking Pennington County for a TIF because Box Elder simply does not have the bonding in order to level to do the types of TIFs that they need to do. So I'm suggesting that we as a commission uh, kind of develop some plans and procedures as to how to move forward here. I don't know what that dollar amount is going to be uh, when we get all these put together and the requests start coming in. But instead of having them coming in at one at a time, I would like to try to put together a plan of where we know what we have coming at us in the near future, and maybe set out some procedures that this commission wants to consider in advance of that. So I have mentioned this to the chair, and the chair has indicated that if I would like to lead a group, essentially looking at TIFs, that maybe would be the way to go. I don't think this is something that can take a long period of time because I know that some of the financing that's already being put together for some of these TIFs is going to require some sort of a commitment, not too far down the road. So I guess my suggestion would be is that we do put together a TIF committee, look at what our options are, where we want to be with it, and come back to this commission with some sort of a recommendation.
Thank you, Gary. I agree. Because we really don't have a process and procedure, we're just following what other people are doing. They do have a different process in the eastern part of the state, as we talked with Al, than we do in the western part of the state. So maybe that committee with Gary can look at kind of what's best for this county before we have 5 TIFs or too many TIFs that we don't really, we have different process for each TIF. So I agree with Gary. I don't know if, do we need to make a motion to that effect?
Madam
Form a
Chair.
committee?
Yes,
I don't think so.
okay.
I respect that thoughts, Gary, because I think, I've been on the TIF committee for the city for probably the last, the 4 years that I've been here. And I think it's a good review process that we need to go through it, having a committee. I mean, we could put together commissioners, auditor, attorney's office, somebody to review them real good and see what our goals are, because at the last ones that I've been doing, I think we really need to take a look at some of these TIFs and see if they could cover some of our roads that we're doing, and maybe we can do some of those things. Because I mean, man, it's affecting us one way or another, and if we could get ahead of that by looking at some of these developments and fixing some of the stuff that we need to do, I think it's a benefit to the county and to the residents. So I think, yes, a committee would be fantastic to be able to review and come back and educate us in the public.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner,
I think Lloyd just made a really, really key point about these TIFs is that if we're going to get involved with helping out a contractor in that manner, if we can stand to gain something from it by not only getting paid back in the long run and earning interest, but at the same time have them paying for some of our infrastructure that we would be paying for, increasing our tax base. There's a lot of things that actually come into play when it comes to a TIF and what benefits the county and what doesn't. So
when we first started TIFs,
yeah.
when I was on the city council, we had people doing oversizing on water and sewer lines. We had them do, if they wanted TIFs or roads. things like that, and I agree. Infrastructure, we should be able to get something out of a TIF besides later on getting more, property tax.
Right, right.
Miss Cindy and me had a little discussion on that, but
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
you know, I always thought when I looked at the TIF, it was just about economic development. You know, how much money are we gonna generate? But the more I start working with different individuals in the TIFs, you know, these TIFs not only promote economic development, but they help the smaller communities like Box Elder do their infrastructure, and they promote safety. I'm looking at one right now. It's just all conceptual, but there's a lot of safety factors in there that this TIF could provide as well. And improving the downtown districts. I think Box Elder, in the future, I think they'd like to have a new identity, and that would be a downtown district. Right now, it's kind of spread all over the place, and I think one of the TIFs that are out there, it's in a conceptual mode right now, would really help Box Elder identify who it is, because that's where I see the most growth in Pennington County in this area is Box Elder.
Yeah.
So it looks like, Gary, you're good to go. It
Okay.
seemed- And then any suggestions that you guys would have or anything to help Gary with what you're thinking, I'm sure you can just email him or visit with him about that. We did talk about also how many TIFs we could do and based on what our bonding capacity is. And Cindy, if you would kind of reiterate on some of that.
The last TIF that we did was basically the agreement was written more as a grant. And Michelle Hoffman from the state's attorney's office did a lot of research on that. And she said that does not count towards our constitutional debt limit.
So if they do them as grants,
That is my understanding, yep.
they're not, they're still legally called TIFs? Wow. Any questions? And their bonding power is what on,
Oh, I don't even think I put that down, but we're way under our debt limit.
Our bonding power is apparently over $1 billion, so don't think we want to go that high.
No,
Well-
please don't.
and and for that reason, I think that's why we need the committee and make sure that when we're doing TIFs, that we're way ahead of this game before. We do have the power to do it, but should we do it, and what is our position based on a process and procedure we have instead of, that's a great idea.
Well, and in the language of the TIF, we need to make sure that just as with the last one, the language really left us very little liability.
Right.
And
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
this potential committee, would it have to be just employees of the county, or could we bring in other outside sources that have significant amount of knowledge relative to TIFs?
I think like Toby and people like that, but I don't think just individual contractors or anything, because then we start getting, stirring the pot a
I'm
little
just
bit.
talking really good
Yeah.
outside sources that wouldn't be,
tax or finance experts, maybe.
That'd be awesome. I think any suggestions you have, Gary will look at it anyway, Ron, so you always have good ideas. All right.
I'm looking for suggestions, so appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else on TIFs, Gary, or
No.
Commission? Okay, next we'll have executive session, SDCL 1-25-2, contracting pending litigation.
Move to go into executive session.
second.
Motion to go into executive session and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Motion to come out of executive session.
Move to come out of executive session.
Moved by DeSanto, second by Roskinick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
All opposed? Motion carries. Do
Madam
we-
Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
I'd make a motion to approve the sale of the county-owned real property located at 725 North LaCrosse Street, Rapid City, South Dakota, legally described in the purchase agreement to Great Plains Tribal Chairman's Health Board, Inc., for the purchase amount of $1,125,000, and to authorize the board chair, auditor, or legal counsel for the county to sign any and all documents necessary to complete the said transaction through closing.
Moved by LaCroy, second by Drews. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Drew, second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries.